What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with some Destiny 2 news and updates. Of course, it's been a very interesting raid weekend so far. Bungie have a couple of additional updates related to the raid, we'll talk about that stuff, but also they give some warnings for various pursuits in the final shape, as well as known issues that they're investigating. And we have a bit of a timeline for some of the content that we're going to see in Echoes, which is of course the new seasonal style release that'll be dropping next week. So we'll talk about that, some exotic items, as well as some hidden rewards and loot that we're going to get access to. I'll give spoiler alerts where necessary for that stuff. We've also got a hidden weapon or two, or a couple of hidden weapons should I say, which will be interesting for some of the upcoming content in the expansion. So as always guys, I hope you enjoyed the video today. If you do, a rating below really helps us out on the channel, but without further delay, let's get into it. And first up, with contest for the new raid still being active at the moment, following on from the list of disabled items that Bungie outlined the other day, they did say the following additional items will be disabled in the Salvation's Edge raid until 10 AM PDT on June 9th, and that includes the Relentless Strikes weapon perk, as well as the Hunter Ascension aspect. They also say to give servers some space to breathe, there will be no bounty or weapon crafting progress for combatant kills below boss tier within the raid while contest mode is enabled. So keep that in mind, we'll talk more about raid things momentarily, but Bungie Help have also said, to mitigate an issue where some players are unable to progress the Convalescence Budding quest, we've unlocked the ability for all players with free roam access to the Pale Heart to access the cooperative focus activity nodes. However, they add that players are advised not to launch into these activities until they're directed to by the Convalescence Budding quest, and of course that's the one that drops the Microcosm Trace Rifle, so definitely keep it in mind if you don't want to mess up any progress on that quest. And otherwise, Bungie Help have said we're investigating an issue where some weapons do not receive enhanced perks when enhanced. This impacts fixed weapon rolls from pursuits and triumphs prior to the final shape's launch, and at this time we advise not enhancing those weapons until a fix can be deployed. So bear that one in mind as well. Up next though, a quick mention with it being raid weekend. Safe to say the day one experience for Salvation's Edge has been much more solid than what we've seen in the past couple of years at least. I haven't actually been into the raid just yet, but some of the best teams in the world were stuck on encounters in this raid for 8 hours. We're not going to get into too many raid spoilers for this video in particular, but we'll have some separate coverage for raid related stuff a bit later on today. The other thing to keep in mind though, is that after the raid is completed, Bungie have teased that a sort of ending segment for the Final Shape campaign, or the main story for the expansion overall, will become available for all players. So post-raid content is something that we're going to get access to in the next day or so, and it could pretty much happen anytime after this video has gone live. So that's something else to keep in mind. So we'll keep you up to date on that. We'll talk about Echoes content in just a moment, but a couple of useful things from some of the patch notes earlier in the week. Given that we haven't had a lot of time to actually look at them, Bungie did say the Wicked Implement Scout Rifle has been moved to the Monument to Lost Lights. Obviously the quest for that is no longer available, so it's a new way to pick it up if you didn't play in that season, and they also say the Catalyst will also be available as a random drop via Ritual playlist post-match rewards. But for raid enhancement and adept weapons, firstly, they say they've updated new drops of raid adepts from Crota's End and Root of Nightmares to have 2 traits in their trait columns, plus they've added weapon enhancement to raid adepts from Vow of the Disciple and Kingsfall, and collecting base weapon patterns will now provide a boost per weapon set to the chance of getting a 3rd trait in the trait columns on new drops. But finally, acquiring an adept version of a weapon now unlocks focusing for the base version of that weapon as well. So a couple of reward progression related things right there. Up next though, Bungie gave a save the date for some events and Echoes bits of content, so they say they will share more details on what's coming with Echoes after the World First race, but for the launch of Echoes, June 11th will be when that new content becomes available, and additionally for June 14th, Trials of Osiris will return, and in the week of July 2nd, Iron Banner will return as well. So that one's not going to be around for a couple more weeks, but on the week of August 6th, Solstice of Heroes will additionally begin. I'd almost forgotten that we'd get a summer event. Solstice will actually get a new weapon. We'll talk about that in a couple of moments, but back to the episode. For the Echoes information node, in relation to that new content, we can see Echo chests will contain seasonal gear, and Echo engrams appear at the end of episode Echoes activities. And we'll be able to use Echo engrams in the helm to receive specific episode gear and weapons. And of course, in terms of what the Echoes activities are, Bungie haven't actually revealed that yet. We don't have a whole bunch of information about it either. But at the same time that Echoes Echoes goes live, Bungie also indicated that the exotic class items for the final shape will become earnable as well. My assumption is that the exotic class items are actually linked to the final shape specifically and not the episode, but it's something that's going to be dropping at the same time. So I'm looking forward to that. They did outline that there will be an activity where we can actually farm for the class items, so that's neat. And we've seen some of the various perks that they're able to roll previously, but another component is that the exotic class items will actually get their own ornaments in the Eververse store. I think these are going to be silver only, but there is the Hellenistic Principle for the Stoicism class item for Titans, the Truth of Being, which is for the Solipsism class item, that's for Warlocks, and then Identity Weft, which changes the appearance of relativism, and that's the Hunter's Cloak. So some pretty juicy cosmetic options for them as well, and I'll be sure to keep you posted when we get details on how we'll obtain these next week. Here though, gotta give a spoiler alert for some of the Echoes content, as it would appear that an additional exotic looks likely to actually drop from the Echoes content, so we can see some intrinsic frames right here. These are called command frames. Obviously, they are exotic and for a new weapon. They're not associated with anything that we've got so far in Final Shape, so quite possibly a craftable exotic weapon coming in the episode as well. Certainly cool to look forward to that. It isn't a surprise necessarily that we're going to get another exotic weapon associated with Echoes, so it's not necessarily a huge spoiler, but cool to know nonetheless. There are other interesting exotic pursuit items as well, like the strange hive tablet that we can see in the database here. I wasn't sure if this was actually from an older exotic pursuit, but according to the database, it's been added this season, so possibly something else to look out for there. But for Solstice of Heroes here, there is a hidden weapon for the event this year. We generally do see event weapons, so that once again isn't a surprise, but it looks like we're getting a new bow for Solstice this time around. It'll be a lightweight frame bow, coming with void damage. We can actually see what the weapon looks like, although we don't know the name of it yet. And in trait slot 1, it'll be able to get Repulsor Brace, Air Trigger, which gives increased ammo reserves while airborne, and accuracy and reload speed are increased, but target acquisition is decreased. Then there's Archer's Tempo, Enlightened Action, Hipfire Grip, Successful Warm-Up, and Loose Change, which can pair up with Disruption Break as well as Destabilizing Rounds. That'll be cool. Then there's Golden Tricorn, Kill Clip, Opening Shot, Precision Instrument, and finally, Archer's Gambit. And Hipfire precision hits will grant a massive draw speed bonus for a short duration. So that'll be an interesting weapon. Kind of curious about the model right there. But once again, based on what Bungie have said, we are going to have to wait until August before that one becomes available. But nonetheless, I thought it was worth a mention. And for today, guys, that is what we have to speak about in this video. So, as always, I hope it's been a useful one, and if it has, a rating below very much helps us out. Also, be sure to get subscribed if you want to be kept up to date with even more Destiny content. But otherwise, I appreciate you tuning in as always, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.